Nice.
Less than a month until the Australian tour. How's the vibe in the Bandcamp at the moment?
Yeah, pretty good. I think the only main concern for some of the guys is the flight, really. The rest is in safe hands. Our agent over there, Greg at United Front, has worked tirelessly for like 7 months. And then I do the other admin side of the band, so I'm fairly used to it. So yeah, for some of the guys, it's more about the long haul flight and our stuff arriving. I guess that's also one of the concerns, is just with the way airports are just now, making sure that we have equipment to play when we get there. But that's by the by. We'll be there. We'll make a show out of it somehow.
Sure. And as you said, like you just said, you've been working on this for 7 months, and fans probably don't realize how long it actually takes to put a tour together. So how long have you actually been planning to get down to see us all?
Oh man, so I'll take you right back to the beginning of this whole timeline. So pre-COVID 2019, we had a Southeast Asia tour planned for Japan. Where did we have? Japan, Taiwan, Malaysia, Singapore, like whole Southeast Asia thing. And then Corona hit, and then we're like, oh well, that's just not going to happen. And then we were like, well, we know that there's a fan base in Australia. Let's see if we can try and make that happen. And I tried doing it DIY a little bit. I booked all the tours for the band until quite recently, and it just wasn't happening. Like we couldn't find someone that could like front the cost and like make it happen in a legit kind of way. And then we kind of gave up on it for a little bit, but like we need to get down to that side of the world. And then basically just about like a year ago, actually, this guy reached out to us and was like, yeah, I book tours nationally. This will be my first international tour, but here's my track record. Like, here's the bands I've worked with. And we did a bunch of calls back and forward just to kind of feel them out and stuff. And yeah, he was just like, let's aim for this time next year. COVID should be cleared up, blah, blah, blah. And so after that, I got onto doing visas. So I had to process all 7 of our visas. That in itself took like 2 months to just do the actual applications. And then there's the wait time for those, really boring stuff. And then obviously the booking of the shows, the flights, accommodation, logistics with gear, support bands, like, you know, you have to get like medical covered as part of your visa, like all the really boring stuff. So yeah, bands, for fans that want to go see their favorite bands, there's stuff that they will never see or know about that got them on that stage in front of you when you just turned up after work for your pint and your gig, you know.
Yeah, and it's not the party that they all think it is. There's a lot of paperwork, really.
Oh man, yeah,
more paperwork than play.
Yeah, genuinely, like it's such a boring bit of being in a band, and I don't want to like dull the fire of anyone that's interested in it, but it is really like, unless you have a few really organized people in your band, like you'll be bound to playing your local venue for the rest of your life. Like you have got to have someone mega organized in it. And yeah, like if you're serious about it, you become that person. That's how I fell into it. Like my degree was in music and composition. It wasn't in admin for being in a band, but I have such a thirst to tour and a love for travel that it's like I learned how to do all that stuff. And yeah, you just find a way.
Yeah, at the end of the day, there is that word that comes at the end of music, which is business.
Yeah, exactly. It is a business. Unfortunately, creativity sometimes blurs the lines between that, but it is a business. People have to make money and get paid and do it as a job. So yeah.
Now there are going to be people that tune in to watch or listen to us that are not going to be aware of the band. So can you give me a history of the band and its members?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dan Stevenson. I'm the guitar player, also tour manager, booking guy, like all-round admin guy, crowd surf extraordinaire. And then we have Ped and Chad. They're the core writers of the band, the founders of the band. And then we have Calum on bass. He's the merch guy, merch king. He does everything to do with that. And then we have our drummer Luke, who is newly drafted. He's only been in the band for about 6 months, so he's just dedicated to playing the drums at the moment, which is fine. We don't need more out of him. And the history of the band, basically, Ped and Chad, the core writers. Chad lives in America, Ped and the rest of the band live in Scotland, and they wrote a record together in 2015 called Orange Mathematics, just as a project, just as a labor of love. That blew up the internet. It got ranked in Rolling Stone. It had like records, like held a record for most sales on Bandcamp that day. Like it blew up. And then basically the guys were like, do we turn it into a band? One lives in America, you live in Scotland, like how would that work, kind of thing. And Ped got in touch with me after we had played in another band together and was just like, do you want to try and see how that would work? And the record is really, really technical. Like a lot of people were naysayers, as in like humans can't play that. It's like robot music. So yeah, we spent like 6 months rehearsing for the first show offer that we got at a festival in the UK in 2016. And then after that, the offers came flooding in, and we've been on headline tours and festival runs ever since. And then we just finished up our last tour last month with Suffocation and Ingested and a bunch of those kind of bigger death metal bands. And yeah, we're off to Oz in 3 weeks now. Basically, this time next month we'll be playing somewhere in America, in Australia.
Yeah. Now the band's genre, when you look at it online, is described as mathcore, which is, there's all these, so many subgenres it's ridiculous to keep track of sometimes. How do you describe mathcore?
So I find it a bit reductive, to be honest. Like it's an easy way to just be like, oh, it's mathcore, because you get an idea of what it is. For anyone that doesn't know, mathcore is basically when you take a lot of odd time signatures, a lot of complex rhythms and stuff, and put that together with massive big riffs. So that's basically what mathcore is. That, I guess ultimately that's what Fontierer is, but I think we're pushing a bit more into the kind of extreme and pushing a bit more into the experimental, whereas mathcore kind of sticks in its box a little bit. And I think that's where we differ a bit. And we try to continually evolve instead of be like in the safe space of mathcore, which is, it has a ceiling, I think.
Sure. Now you recently went out and did Knotfest, didn't you?
So we didn't play Knotfest. We got offered to play and unfortunately we couldn't, but we've been featured on so much of their stuff. Like lots of their hosts have played our music. We did a live stream with one of their hosts as well, and they're always shouting about us, which is incredible, because like Slipknot's the reason most metalheads at some point are addicted to metal, and that is mind-blowing to us, that we're considered and continually like pulled back into their sphere. But we couldn't make the German Knotfest, unfortunately, but we are hopeful in the future we'll maybe get one of the Knotfest shows next year. We'll see.
Excellent. By the time you get here, Oxidized will be a year old. Have you guys started thinking what happens next in terms of studio work?
Damn, I didn't even realize that'll be a year. Yeah, well spotted. So Ped has written most of the next record already. He really likes to kind of get ahead of the game. So once he finished Oxidized, he had a big pile of the writing done already for the fourth record. And so yeah, he is the engineer, he has his own studio, he writes, records and mixes everything, and then Brad Boatwright does the mastering. So yeah, he's fairly on the way with that. He sent us a bunch of demos and stuff to kind of listen to and give feedback on, and I really like the direction it's going in. Like I said, we try and kind of push into different territory every record, and this definitely feels like it's bringing more of the experimental and a bit more of the kind of soundscape world into the kind of bleak heaviness of the band as well.
Sure. And the one way I can describe the music is it's got many different layers, many different textures. So when you guys set about, while Ped is the main writer, you'll add your parts. What's important to you when it comes to adding your textures over the top of his work?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess this is much more live where I get to do that, because he'll also still like play his, like he'll record leads, like he'll do all guitars and bass, and then when it comes to live, he'll say, this was the idea on the record, what would you like to do? He's really open with that. So when I translate that into a live environment, I really like to think about what impact that's going to have on the audience. Is that a memorable thing that they're actually going to latch on to? Is it a thing where they, you know, an audience member might feel like this doesn't really have a place at this part of the set or something like that? So for me, it's about the direct impact and if it kind of works with the song. And texture is the right word. Like I really, like outside of the band, most of the music I make is very like synthesizer, electronic, experimental, all textures. So so yeah, it's a bit more about suiting what the audience would like out of that, I guess.
Sure. And so that also translates into how to build a live show, because you never want one of your songs to become the dedicated piss break in the middle of the show. So when you guys put a set list together, what is it that's more important to you, the hits or the flow?
Oh, I love that expression, the dedicated piss break song. So for us, it's like like we kind of see it as like how do we eliminate fatigue. So when we first started doing our tours, the main thing we noticed is that we have like a time threshold for the audience. Like once we get past 40-45 minutes, eyes glaze over, phones are getting checked, and it's like, right, well, we can't have that at a show. That tells us we're not doing our job right. So at that stage we were like, okay, so we have like really 45 minutes if you add in all the breaks and the kind of gaps and stuff. And so what do we want in that? And usually it's like, I personally think that you've got about 10 seconds to capture people that don't know your band. So obviously we're doing a headliner in Australia, but there'll be tons of people there that don't know us, that are there for the support bands. They're going with their mate, they're going with their boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. And so we have 10 seconds to like capture them. So we think about an intro track. What does the lighting do with that? What does the first song do? Does that actually let people headbang and get involved? Does it create the atmosphere? And for me, it's like one of my bigger roles in the band is like creating that, like, how do we get the tension and like, how do we get that release? And so that first song, any gig I go to now, and it's been the same since I was like a teenager, like I want to feel a good mixture of like scared and excited by that first song, regardless of the genre. If it's hip hop or like jazz, or I want to feel a little bit of terror somewhere in that. So it's really about setting that standard at the very beginning of that set, and then maintaining that to some degree, and having like a really big closer, a big end, where if people come in late, they can leave thinking, holy fuck, like that we won't see that again for a long time. Like that's the way that I view it when we start to kind of curtail the live set.
Sure. Now, speaking of first songs, normally when I see a band, I'm in that little barrier there, the photo pit, taking my photos. And it's become like a concern for me when I turn around and I see the front row full of phones on. How is it for you as a performer to see rows of phones?
I think we're really lucky in our band that I have literally never seen that at one of our shows. I gave that example of people being on their phones. Like, I don't know why I said that. I've never seen someone on their phone at a Fontierer show, but just as an example, like you could say that might happen. But yeah, like, I don't know if that's a sign of the live show being immersive, or if the fan base are a lot more like involved in what's happening. But I've literally never had it with this band that I've looked and been like, oh, that makes me feel shit because they're on their phone. So I couldn't really give an honest answer to that. I haven't experienced it with the band, which I guess is a good thing.
That's amazing, because I can't imagine watching a giant stage through a screen a few inches wide. Just it baffles me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, as a person that actively goes to a lot of shows, I hate it. Like, I love that a lot of more bands are now saying that there's a phone ban on their shows. Like Idols are doing it now as well, because it just ruins that experience. And I don't know if it's just me coming from an age of like pre-mobile phones, but like I just don't know why you would pay your hard-earned money to go view a thing through a 3-inch phone. Like, feel the feeling on the stage, see the people around you experience it, instead of capture it for Instagram and then tag the band. Like, that's not the same thing.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, speaking of social media, now I noticed that the band are really active on Bandcamp and socials. What role does social media play for you business-wise, and also when you're connecting to the fans? How do you balance that off?
So business-wise, I mean, we have done incredibly well via social media. I mean, like, for some reason, a lot of the stuff we post ends up going fairly viral, and like we get memed a lot because we look like really odd creatures on stage. So like, just by nature of exposure, like social media works really well for us, which is great. And so we try to capitalize on that a little bit. But the way things have been going with social media is really hard to predict now. So whether it's Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, something that would maybe 5 years ago get like 600, 700, 800 likes would now maybe get a fraction of that. And it's really difficult, excuse me, to work out how to use that and what to do with it. So for us, we're still kind of learning and evolving with how we do that. One thing that we try and do that maybe sets us apart from some other bands in the genre is that every time we do anything, we travel with a photographer, and he makes like a highlight reel and makes that in different formats. And then he'll do like a bunch of edited pictures from that show. So immediately we can put that all online across socials, and people can go, oh, cool, that looks like an awesome show. That looks like they know what they're doing on the stage, or like whatever. So I think that really helps, having a bit of a vision for how it comes across and being quite self-aware. And I guess that's kind of like our experience so far with socials.
That's really good. Yeah, especially there are a lot of bands that travel with photographers now, and I think that as a photographer myself, it also, for want of a better word, controls how the band is seen to the outside world, rather than being through a phone.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. Exactly that. And it's like, we don't want to share like somebody's phone picture that's blurry and has a thumb over half the lens, you know, like that just says amateur all over it. And our photographer Nick Neunhaus, who you might meet when we're out there, like he is stepping down to be with our band. He tours typically with like Sum 41, Zebra Head, Less Than Jake, Simple Plan, like that's his world. He's on bus tours, and then he slums it with us because he loves what we do, and it's amazing that he does it. But there's no one else we would give like that creative control to, because he knows how to project a band to make it look like a real professional outfit, and we really appreciate that he's with us.
That's amazing. Nothing better than a professional photo rather than a phone on 45 degrees after 7 beers.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you guys don't really get a lot of time off when you're here. You know, it's pretty stacked. So do you plan to actually try to get and see anything while you're here, or there's just not going to be that time between travel?
It's a bit tough. So we get 3 days in Brisbane. So we get like the jet lag hangover day, we get a rehearsal day, and then we have show day. So there's some cool stuff around Brisbane. I used to live in Australia. I'm really excited to come back and see some of the things that I didn't get to see when I lived there. But the band have never been there, so they're going to be doing quite a lot of the kind of quick touristy sort of things. But we have a day off in Melbourne, which for me is the best case scenario. I just want to drink coffee and eat food for the whole day. And I'm so excited. I actually met my wife in Melbourne, and I want to go back to the hostel that I met her in and just kind of see how it looks and if it's still there. And so that's about it. I've got an extra day in Sydney at the end, and I lived in Manly for a little while, so I think I might get the ferry out to Manly on the off day at the end. And that's it. I mean, like you said, we're going to be flat out for most of it, so it's going to be a lot of like recovering and
hit and run.
Trying. Pretty much.
Oh, that's all right. I can tell you the good spots in Brisbane for coffee, so you're sorted.
Oh hell yeah, man. Are you going to be at the show?
We'll do our best to be there.
Cool.
We come and say hi.
Absolutely. For sure. Let us know. We'll sort out all the passes and whatever you need. We'll get it
easy done. That'd be great. Thanks. So 3 weeks away. What do you want to leave us with?
What do I want to leave you guys with? I don't know if or when we'll be back in Australia. Maybe not at all. I really hope that we do get to go out there. But I would say if there's a Dillinger-shaped hole in your life for sheer terror in a live music venue, maybe Fontierer can fill that gap for a couple of shows next month for you. But whatever your music taste, come along, hang out. We love chatting to people, and it's an honor to come over. Genuinely, it's like a life goal of mine to travel internationally with music. So we're grateful anyone gives a fuck about our band, to be honest.
Perfect, Dan. I'll see you in Brizzy. I'll hit you up and we'll go get a coffee.
Sounds awesome. Cheers, Andrew.
See you, man. Have a good night.
Cheers.
Bye.